Hello, my name is Odogene Joseph, and this is my presentation for effective software development, polishing methods to right-size solutions. So the purpose of this study is to examine the inconsistencies and limitations within data collection and how it relates to the processes within software development and how we can better modify those processes within three different areas of training and onboarding, communication, and data collection and analysis to ensure right-sized solutions are being delivered to the client. And so within the planning and analysis stage, uh, I wanted to give a visual of the product development lifecycle. As you can see, the within the first two parts of this is what the planning and analysis stage relates to, as far as gathering requirements and scoping out a project before it begins to get into the development stage of that specific project. So the software development lifecycle within that product development lifecycle is has to do with planning, of course, and doing that analysis, but then designing and implementing the solution that's agreed upon between stakeholders and IT managers and software architects related to the requirements from the client in and of itself. And so this is the sort of visual of that and how it kind of comes to fruition down to the delivering of the product. So the cost of rework is essentially one of the biggest issues within software development. And so essentially the more defects that you have within software, the more time it's going to take to fix it, and then the more time that you spend fixing it, the more money is going to be dispensed by a company to fix the defects. And so, however, if effective data collection is done at the beginning and collaboration is done on the front end, the less defects that will need to be fixed by the company and its developers. So these are one of the three of the biggest problems within software development. Products are exceeding budgets, and then so the functionality of a product is essentially reduced because of the amount of defects within them, and then that essentially provides for a low quality software, and essentially that ends up being bad for business and bad for the clients as well. And so within effective data collection, there are three different parts that I wanted to specifically highlight. Semi-structured interviews, focus groups, and cross-functional collaboration. They all work hand in hand. And so these interviews that are conducted on the front end between stakeholders and clients are gathering the information needed for so that way within the focus groups of IT managers and eventually developers and project managers, that information is conveyed down the line and then which essentially leads to reducing data inconsistencies after having cross-functional collaboration between teams. And so now we're going to get into organizational communication. So within organizational communication, the there's a lot of barriers associated with that. So as you can see here, there's language barrier, use of jargon. So all of this becomes a responsibility of managers to eliminate these barriers, and so that way it provides more production being done, and production is not halted within these barriers. So virtual team is sort of a new development that has been that has been adapted within software development. And so teams from across the world or remotely are communicating with each other virtually through corporate emails and chats. So information is dispensed is quickly and effectively because people may not have time to do so between meetings or within meetings themselves, and so that information is then conveyed on the front end for those remote teams, and so that way effective collaboration is done there. And so this leads to sort of agile software development. And so this is a methodology that has been adapted within software development to deliver products incrementally. So you may not get all of the product at once, because the focus is making sure that each part of that product or that piece of software is working at optimum level and developed quickly but efficiently by separate teams. And so we found that there's a higher success rate between smaller teams and larger teams because of Agile, and Agile sort of promotes that as well. And so within training and onboarding, the main problem that researched and found is that new developers aren't getting the training and onboarding that they needed, and then which essentially leads to production failure and inconsistent work and defects because they don't have that specific that training that they need in the front end. And so these are listed recommendations for each specific part as previously discussed. So specific for planning and data collection, um, so stakeholders have these semi-structured interviews that involve open-ended conversations and specific questions answered. That information is then conveyed to IT management and the software developers, and then the IT management discusses those findings within the different teams that are going to be working on the project. Specific for communication, stakeholders communicate as we just basically discussed. Stakeholders communicate the information to IT managers and to solution architects, who then communicate to developers and testers, and then that collaboration is being done all across the board. And then managers essentially remove any barriers within that communication to ensure production is performed at optimum level. Specific for training and onboarding, uh, one of the pieces of research that I found was that the Google Corporation has a well laid out plan for the new developers coming in. And so as a sort of adopting that model, software development managers can work with human resource managers and to essentially develop a robust training and onboarding program for new developers coming in, which essentially makes them more effective in their role. And then they can assign them a mentor to walk through the code base so they can understand it better. And that mentor would have specific tasks assigned to the new developer to ensure that he or she is learning not only the company but the software to better provide assistance down the line and reduce the amount of defects and reduce the amount of costs associated with work and rework being done. And so that's my presentation. Here's a list of references that I used for that presentation. And so these are the list of references that I have. And let me know if you have any questions. Again, my name is Ojin Joseph. Thank you.